Hey guys, my name is Luke Heathcote. I am the lead developer on this, and with me I've got Bart.
Hi, I'm the designer for this project.
Okay, so Bart, tell me about this lovely background that you made for the start of the game.
Right, so I guess this is kind of the style of this background here is a nod to the initial idea we had for this project, which was to have a living space which is essentially all white. And whenever the player kind of interacts with the space and presses A or on, the whole kind of area would come alive with colors and textures, as obviously they would be casted by the augmented reality.
Yeah, perfect, perfect. And so yeah, you've designed this lovely kitchen asset here, and you've also designed this lovely logo in the top left corner. Um,
Yeah,
the UI elements are really kind of your love child here. You really did all of the UI elements.
yeah.
Uh, Um, and all I've kind of done is just I've done the interactive side of it, so the code behind it all, what helps lights up this. So if we press controls, you made this lovely keyboard here. So if you'd like to talk about that.
Yeah, so I guess the 3D keyboard was actually Luke's idea. And what we were going for here is kind of an easy and kind of obvious way to show any person how to kind of play the game and interact with the space without any issues. So obviously what we did is we created just a regular keyboard that anyone would be familiar with in Cinema 4D. Rendered it out using the exact same Lightroom and color correction settings in Photoshop. So the first background and this background kind of matches in terms of colors. Um, and then we used Figma to add the lines and all the text that tells you what button does.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, let's show them the game, shall we? So
Yeah,
launching in. Okay, so this is the main game. On the walls you got some of the work by some of our fellow peers, such as Amaya's work on the wall, my work, and some of the renders that you did in Cinema 4D. But you made this lovely motion graphics here. So
yeah.
where was your head at when you made this?
So this was actually a quite simple thing to do. Essentially, what I did is I imported the logo and the typeface logo that we made in Illustrator, put it into After Effects, and kind of did some animations. I guess what I was going for here is to create some kind of like a motion piece which loops around. So this can be used essentially any way you want. For example, any promotional material, website, um, essentially anywhere you can put in some motion graphics. And yeah, like I said, the main idea was to have it being looped.
Yeah, perfect. So I mainly designed this first room here. Bart did some of the models up on the ceiling to help make the ceiling look nice. So you did the beams and the lights and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Um, and yeah, but other than that, you really didn't touch this room too much. I mainly made this room building the walls, doing the texture, and finding some assets to fill it. But
that's right.
I got some books here. These they got my FMP from last year and my learning journal as well as another project I did. But we've also got your learning journal here as well.
Yeah, that's from second year at uni.
Yeah, perfect. So yeah, we've got some nice features on the wall like this coronavirus poster and the detour ahead. This is just because it's the AVA building. I don't know the room number. Do you know the room number off the
I
top of your
can't
head?
remember right now. No.
So going into this next part, we have this lovely piece of work by Gemma, some more work from the original website, and then we got some work by Teza. But you did this lovely logo again. It's the same logo, but it's a
Yeah,
3D model. So how did we do
yeah.
this?
So I mean, this was again really easy. Took the logos that we made into Illustrator, expanded them, and then exported that in Cinema 4D, where I used a extrude tool to kind of make it bigger, and then added some caps to soften the edges a bit so they're not very sharp. And then obviously sent it back to you, Luke.
And then I put it in. So before we move on to the next room, you also did some lovely design UI on the buttons that we can see here and here. So,
Yeah.
what was your choice for going with this style? Like,
I mean, they're meant to kind of emulate the UIs you're going to be able to see later on in this video. But essentially, this was just a very simple thing that had to be very kind of obvious and clear to the user. That's why it's not very overcomplicated. It's simple, straight to the point, just so you know exactly what you're doing and you're not confused.
Yeah, perfect. So as well as the sign, you also made the arrows on the floor here. Um,
Hmm.
I'm not missing anything else. Oh, we got a little Stanley up there in the corner as like a nice little Easter egg, and we got the projector as well. So moving on. This room is the last kind of, well, is a room I designed because in the final show I wanted to have projection mapping. Uh, but before coronavirus hit, that's what we were gonna do. We were gonna do the summer show. We were gonna do some AR, some projection mapping, but we didn't do that in the end. So this is just like a nice little inclusion of the projection mapping, just a little simple something before you go into the main room. Uh, Open up. We have a sliding door which slides to the left, and we go in, and we're into the first part of the room, the main reception. And straight away, you are right next to the kitchen, this lovely kitchen that you designed, Bart. So
Yeah. So I guess the thing about the kitchen was this was the very first element that I kind of designed, and this was based on the amount of research that I did on, for example, furniture and how to make objects look futuristic. So I guess the main thing about this was kind of first of all looking at the form factor of all the furniture. Um, what I did is kind of did a bunch of sketches and tried to kind of look at them in 3D and figure out kind of the best way to make it look futuristic while at the same time not making it look as if it's something from the 60s, because they kind of had a similar type of furniture design back then with a lot of rounded corners and kind of a lot of flat surfaces. But yeah, this was meant to essentially represent what kind of furniture and appliances may look like in about 10 years' time in 2030.
yeah, perfect. So yeah, you designed all the kitchens, and I did a lot of the texture work here, so you can see the glossy granite worktop, the metal on the sides, and the handles are different as well. And also the fridge's got loads of scuff marks on it, just where people would put sticky notes and fridge magnets on it, so it gets scuffed over time. We've also got the lighter from the original AR test that we did on the worktop. Well, it's made a nice little inclusion. Um, but let's talk about the stuff in the fridges. So one of the big things I worked on was making sure that you could interact with everything. You could open up all the cupboards, open the oven, open the microwave, make sure you can shut it all again as well. Um, but to help save time, you didn't make the assets for the cupboards. Neither did I.
No.
And
So obviously the reason for why we didn't make the assets, the smaller ones such as the bottles and all the boxes, is first of all, some of them are quite complicated to make, which would take a long amount of time. And second of all, which I think is the main point for why we didn't create all the smaller assets, is the UV mapping that we would have to do for each individual object, and obviously creating the custom textures for these objects. That in itself would have probably taken a month or two, creating all these single things by hand individually. So obviously, kind of our main priority was creating the furniture itself in the room, rather than the smaller objects that don't necessarily need as much attention.
yeah, so as you can see, a lot of it is white with the QR codes. This is actually stuff I did UV map. I spent a lot of time UV mapping everything what's packaging, anything what's food. Is you wouldn't put a QR code on food. You're not going to make food a different color. But packaging, it's all white, and it have a purpose for that, and I'll explain it in a second. Um, Another inclusion that I did is I made all the walls as well as the rounded corners, where you mainly focused on how actual objects in the room, such as this little table here, as well as the kitchen. So yeah, um, we've also got a lovely slate back to the kitchen area as well, and yeah. So one of the big things in our game is that we wanted to make anything what's packaging, anything what's temporary, have AR. It's AR tracked. So if we press AR on, you can see all the packaging lights up, all this UI comes around, and yeah. So do you want to explain about the UI on the stuff here,
Yeah.
Bart?
Sure. So obviously, every single kind of individual feature and UI element that you see here has been carefully thought out. And I guess the reason for this was we wanted to kind of emulate, quite accurately how a living room of the future may look like, and kind of the elements and features, the practical elements and features that you might encounter through kind of having an AR-enabled kitchen. Um, so, for example, if you look at the fridge, you have, if you yeah, go closer. So yeah, for example, first of them is what are we cooking today, and then that gives you kind of information on the items that are going to expire soon. So for example, what you're going to kind of eat faster, so you're not wasting any food. It tells you how many recipes you have currently available, and then what the recipes are on the right hand side. It also tells you all the calories intake and how much time it's going to take to cook. Um, all these are very kind of practical features that I believe, when they become an actual thing, people are definitely going to be using. So kind of that's what we try to emulate through this.
Yeah, you've done a great job of the UI here. So
Thank
the
you.
UI is not just bound to the fridge. You've also got the cupboards in the oven. But for now, I'm gonna turn it off for the next part of the call. So we have this smart assistant here. This is just like Alexa or something like that. The smart assistant, if you talk to it, you can put the island away. What really helps bring up this small but quite large studio flat and gives you a bit more space for when you accommodate guests and stuff. Um, let's put the island back up. So another thing that we've included is we've included smoke alarms. They're smarter smoke alarms in the year 2030. If they feel like you're gonna, the frying pan's too hot or something, and you're gonna cause a fire, the smoke alarms will turn down the frying pan automatically, which should prevent a lot of fires. As well as extra security, there is webcams everywhere, as well as smoke alarms. Um, moving on to the next area, what do you want to show next, Bar? We got
I think we should move on to the living room.
perfect. So moving on to the living room, which just here we have. Yeah, we've got a living room. Do you want to explain anything about this here?
Yeah, so I think the living room by itself is a very plain space. So like we just did, we're going to enable AR, and now you're encountered with obviously a enormous display that curves around to the shape of the walls, as well as the AR interface that we implemented for it. And so I guess the main thing about this space is, before you turned on the AR, one of the things that could be probably striking to someone from the 2020s is there's no TV anywhere. And I guess one of the big solutions to that is obviously the AR screen that you see here. Um, and yeah, so I guess like I explained in my portfolio research, the thing about physical screens and displays is that they're not very practical. What I mean by that is they require a lot of things to actually work. For example, electricity, a connection to the wall, and obviously a physical space to place the display. And AR displays are one of those things that kind of gets rid of all these issues and makes it even better, increasing the immersion factor for any person that's going to be using them. And then obviously the AR displays, the AR overlay that comes with it, gives you some interesting options. Just Netflix, YouTube, Facebook. It gives you your settings, your favorites. You can easily change your HDMI outputs. You can kind of see which HDMI you're currently using, and I feel like those are some of the features that are going to be very practical and useful in the future when AR actually becomes a thing.
Yeah, so we made some interesting design choices when it came to this area in particular. The lounge was very important to us. It was one of the first areas to get the UI element, and I worked quite a while on the TV. I mean, let's be honest, there is some screen tear. It's not the most perfectly UV mapped thing, but it's because it's a curved screen, and to have a curved image what's flat at the same time is really hard to pull off, and I'm sure Bart can back me up on that. Just
Definitely, yeah.
doing UV, but having text what stays straight from any angle is one of the big things with the screen, and that's something we really push for and spent a lot of time working on. We also make the UI is transparent slightly, so you can actually see the TV through behind it. This was one of the design choices that you went for.
See, the reason for why these kind of AR objects are transparent is because they're not an actual physical objects you're going to encounter. And I guess one of the things that's very prevalent right now is, I mean, the reason for this is the hardware for the actual AR glasses. Right now, people are using a see-through bit of plastic to cast the image onto, and that's kind of precisely what makes the object ever so slightly see-through. Um, Possibly in the future, there might be new technologies that are kind of developed which allow you to have completely, not see-through objects. But for now, this is kind of the best that we have.
Yeah. Um, I just want to say a couple of things. So first off, the big thing is the date. You'll notice that on all the UI, the date and the time is the same. It's the 5th of June was the hand-in date for us on the year 2030. So it's 10 years from when we hand in. Was nice. And yeah, the TV you can see that is by having a curved TV, it's incredibly immersive. Also, another thing is that the UI always tracks where the player is. What's a nice little feature that I put in by your request as well, I think. But you were
Yeah,
very demanding when it came to the UI and how you wanted it to be.
yeah.
Cool. Let's move on to the bedroom. So yeah, do you want to start or shall I?
You can start, mate. Go for it.
So yeah, the bedroom is full of different things. Lots of photos on the wall, lots of assets. And yeah, you made the bed and you made the shelves and you made
Hmm.
this UI here.
Yeah,
And as well as that, you also made this little hexagon looking thing down here. But other
yeah.
than that, everything else is online assets that we found on the internet. And this is again the same reason as the cupboards. It's just a lot of stuff to make, a lot of stuff to texture. Um, but yeah, the main things that you designed were the shelves, the bed, and the cabinet over there, as well as the bin. So again, I know we went with this interesting futuristic design, but like, where were you thinking, like, with this?
So same thing with the kitchen. We had certain ideas and certain concepts that we wanted to kind of put across through obviously the visual language of the project. But so I guess the reason for why they look the way they look is we obviously wanted to show futurism, but at the same time, not too far into the future. Um, and you mentioned the objects before. I also want to add in that the reason for why we use the online assets is it's not necessarily a very important thing of the project, but rather something that it would be too distracting to create a lot of them, and so that's why we wanted to kind of focus on the more important things that actually put across our ideas, rather than spending days on days working on little objects that aren't even going to get any attention.
Yeah, they're just room fillers at the end of the day to us.
That's it.
They could be easily swapped with a different object and mean nothing else to us.
Yeah.
So we made this nice featured wall, and I made the featured wall and textured it all up, and I did all the textures for the bed and everything you see. And yeah, you did the music UI here, what's really nice.
Hmm.
So one of the big things we wanted was, say, photo frames. They're an absolute hassle to take off, down, and up, and put them everywhere. So we wanted all the photo frames in the apartment to be easily changeable, so you could change the photos that are in the photo frames just by using your UI. What meant everything in the room can change all the time. Um, we also designed this nice ceiling. You did, well, I made the original shape for the ceiling, and you put these nice skylights in it.
Mhm.
Let's move on to the balcony, shall we?
Yeah. So
So the balcony, with the middle flat in between nine, or it's 3 by 3 grid of flats, very similar style, and they're all encapsulated into this dome. And this dome allows the amazing thing that anyone who's sat out here could have whatever background they wanted. So if Bart came and joined me in the game, or if say this was real life in 10 years time, you could come and sit on the balcony and sit on the balcony surrounded by a lovely forest. Where for me, I'm much more of a beach person, so I would like to be next to the sunset at the beach. Um, so we can just turn the UI on and have our own backgrounds. And you designed this lovely piece here. This is probably one of my favorite UIs
thank you.
to how where you can choose which background you want. As you can see, here's the forest and the beach. The beach is
That's it.
awesome
Yeah.
at the moment.
Yeah, I think one of the big focuses was, well, in terms of the UI, is to first of all create something that kind of any user would be already familiar with. That's why where kind of the buttons that you see, they already emulate some of the UI design that people already know how to use and they're friendly with. But I guess another thing was having, for example, multiple kind of uses on each individual card. So, for example, the exterior one, on the right hand side, you have the scenes that you can choose and play around with. Underneath that, you have the ambience, so you can you make it nighttime or daytime depending on what you're looking for. And then the card on the left, tells you your music, some of your recently played albums, so you can jump right back into the entertainment straight away.
Yeah, yeah, perfect. And yeah, this balcony was the second asset that you made. You did it all. You sent basically you did the kitchen, then the balcony, living
Hmm.
room, bedroom, bathroom, and we're gonna go into the bathroom next. The bathroom is probably one of the most impressive features of the entire flat. Just because at this point, by the time we got to the bathroom, we had both been working on the project for quite a while, and I think we both got our heads around how to work better
Yeah.
together in doing stuff. And this we'll explain it in a second. Um, but is there anything else you want to say about this balcony?
No, I think you've actually covered all the bases.
So yeah, obviously we got My Learning Journal again has made an appearance. Originally we wanted to have it with our fellow peers work, like having all of the students learning journals around, but we didn't have enough submissions. We've also got this lovely Jimmy's iced coffee from one of my mates back home who's on a graphic design course at Bournemouth. But moving on, we're moving to the bathroom, and again another sliding door. Okay, I'll let you take the lead on this, but
Sure. So again, like with any kind of furniture that you see in this flat, um, this one was actually a quite difficult one to do, just because if you look at the sink and the toilet and the bath itself, they all kind of perfectly match the shape of the room with all the curvature and stuff. So what I did there is I actually got Luke to send over the dimensions and the actual 3D model of the room. And each kind of bit of furniture in this area was specifically designed to perfectly match, the contour of the walls and everything like that. So that's why this one kind of took a bit more time than all the other ones, since obviously this is a quite small space and it's very compact.
yeah, so I guess we kind of essentially writ ourselves into a corner a little bit. Because I did all the walls essentially. I did all the walls first. I did the flooring first, and that was perfectly fine for everything else we designed. Like the balcony needed to be the same size as the rest of the flat, but things like the
Hmm.
bed and the chair and the kitchen could all be fitted in where it is needed to, and it got moved around. This room's been through a couple different design layouts, but mainly this layout is the main one that we
Hmm.
went with and we thought was happiest. But just like any house or flat you move into, you eventually move things around and try new things. So maybe you try the bed in this corner and have the screen in this corner. It's really up
Yeah,
to the
I
user.
guess that's kind of why we left this space quite open. We wanted to allow the user to be kind of open to um, moving things about and creating some kind of a modular design to where you're not confined to a specific space, being a specific room. You can move it about to your desires and your needs, kind of depending on what you're doing, what you're up to.
Yeah, we really made this like our flat, but the idea is we wanted it to be kind of everyone's. Like to put it how you wanted it. It's just a load of assets what help design the year 2030, a luxury flat where you can put the UI wherever you want. You can change the modules on the UI like you said, and change all the photos up and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, this bathroom is probably one of my favorite assets just because it fits so snugly in the space and was just a delight to put in the game. Saying putting everything in the game can be a hassle, but when it's all measured out and nice, it just fits in and it was really easy to put in this stuff. Again,
Yeah.
we've got a smart assistant here. Um, Anything else you want to say? Any last calls? Anything else you want to point out before we end the video?
Um, yeah. So obviously, I think if you kind of want to get, a bit more immersed into why we did things a certain way and, the reasons for why things are designed the way they are designed is, obviously check out my and Luke's explanation. We both give our own individual kind of points of view on our sides of the project in our portfolios. And then if you check out the website, tomorrowar.com, you can have a look at the timeline and essentially both of our sides of the project, how they were put together, and how we cooperated to put this thing together.